How are you? My name is Pat Campbell, radio talk show host from Tulsa, Oklahoma, and you are watching The Rational Male 101, episode, 42.
42.
And today we're going to be talking about zeroed out. What does it mean when a man is zeroed out in a relationship? And of course, I'm joined by the godfather of the manosphere himself, the cult leader, Rollo Tomasi, the Rational Male. Rollo, what's going on?
Crazy. Yeah. I am the cult leader. Yes, I'm embracing that right now.
Self-appointed, I trust.
Self-appointed. Yes. I thought God Emperor was a little much, so I'll just.
Yeah, it's a little over the top. It's a little over the top.
Yeah.
Will you be inviting the Pope for your inauguration? That's all.
I don't know. Maybe some of the lower cardinal.
Maybe. All right.
Kiss the ring. Yeah.
All right. On a serious note here. So, what led to our topic choice today? So, I train at a facility in a community a little bit away from where I live, and I go there for anonymity. Most people don't know who I am, what I do for a living. Anyways, to make a long story short, there was a guy that I've known for maybe a couple of years who had been training, and I haven't seen him like in 6 months. And I remember he was all excited. You know, he met that girl, that special girl. He was going to get married and all this other stuff. And so he came back. I saw him the other night, and he looked very different than what he looked like 6 months ago. His posture, you know how you carry yourself? It was like he had been rejected or dejected, and it was like sort of hunched over. And I said, "Man, where you been?" I said, "What happened to the beard?" He had this awesome beard. I mean, it was like trophy beard on his face. That was gone. I said, "Where you been?" He says, "To hell and back." Oh, man. He says the last 6 months he had gotten engaged to this girl. And by the way, he's right in that age, and I think the girl too was in the epiphany phase, where this was it. This is the chick he had always dreamed about. Everything was going to be great. And because of his job, I guess he does a little bit of traveling. And to make a long story short, they're planning on the marriage, all this other stuff. And he comes home, and he caught her sleeping. I'm not sure if it was his best friend or one of his friends caught her sleeping with one of his buddies. And he told me the story. He said she cleaned me out. She took half of everything I owned. I think she may have been on a joint checking and savings account, cleared that out as well. The guy goes, everything I've been taught to believe, he goes, it's a lie. He says, I've been zeroed out. Then I started talking to him. I said, you ever hear of the red pill? No. I said, you ever hear of the Rational Male? No. I said, you know what I do for a living? He says, no. I said, let me walk you through this. I said, first of all, here's the good news. I said, you didn't get married. It could have been worse. And the second thing was, I said, but did you die? And so we were talking about that off air. There's a whole story behind that. So I sent him 3 episodes of the Rational Male or Red Pill 101 that we have done on, getting zeroed out, getting T-boned, why women cheat, all of these other things. And I'm also sending him a PDF copy of the book as well. But it got me to thinking, so many guys out there have been they think they're doing everything the way they should. And out of the blue, it doesn't make sense to them. It's like, well, why would she do this to me? Why would she cheat on me? I got everything she wants, yet it's like they cannot control their hypergamy. Yeah. So that's sort of the setup. And then we got the Jordan Peterson thing we want to talk about today.
Yeah, we will definitely get to that this episode. Yeah, when you were telling me that story, and then of course what's going on with Jordan Peterson right now, and then I don't know if this is actually a quote unquote zeroing out, but also Rick Ocasek passing away from the Cars. The lead singer, bass player from the Cars just passed away, and it was within 6 months of him being divorced from his very pretty Playboy playmate wife.
She's the one that initiated that. She was like a model when he married her. He was 47 and she was 25. They were together for 28 years.
Yeah.
I mean, he was an odd-looking fella, so there must have been something. She had her own money.
Oh yeah. Here's the thing: is I think that when you've got a situation of both the woman and the man, or at least some sort of in most people's estimation, they would be high sexual market value, high SMV, and would also be at least somewhat self-sufficient. Like you got a rock star who makes a lot of money, or you got an athlete that makes a lot of money, he's good looking. He has options, or at least whether he believes that or not, or whether he's blue pill enough to repress all that is another story. But just objectively speaking, the guy has options. Playboy playmate who makes a good chunk of change being a model or a celebrity of some sorts, has money and is good looking and is also of that same level of status. So sometimes there's going to be and this is a complete side tracking here, but there's going to be a coming together of two people who are very high SMV. And I don't think a lot of guys who are just sort of average guys or average women really realize the backstory that goes on between two people who are high SMV. But the thing about Rico Kasich is, if you look at the guy, he's not the best looking dude in the world. Okay,
he was always kind of
he never looked
young. You notice that? Yeah. He never looked young.
Yeah, ever. I know. Even when he was young, even in like the early 80s.
I couldn't believe he was 75. Could you?
No. And then of course Eddie Money died too, and
Eddie Money was 70. Well. Eddie Money looked of course he had stage 4 esophageal cancer. Yeah. But Rico Kasich, if somebody told me he's 75, I'd go, no way.
Yeah. Well, okay. So Rico Kasich, and I don't know this for a fact because I don't know all of the the whole details of that whole thing, but it would strike me as if it is a zeroing out. And so when we were talking about that, I go, you know what? I don't think we've ever had a live talk about what I mean by being zeroed out. Zeroing out, and if you look in the description of today's show, you'll see the link to my post called Zeroed Out. And I wrote this back in 2017, and I think it was around the time, it was before Anthony Bourdain, but it was about the time I was seeing a lot of guys who were, I was studying male suicides, and why it is that the prime demographic is between 45 and 55 years old for men to either kill themselves or to get hooked on opioids or to just go crazy with the alcohol.
By the way, you never hear that in the mainstream media.
Oh,
we hear about teen suicide. We hear about LGBTQ suicide. You never hear about the guys that are at the biggest risk in the age range.
Yeah, well, men are disposable. Simple as that. And then, of course, it's white men between, upper middle class white men between the ages of 45 and 55 years old. And so why is that? And you and I on your show, I mean, we've been doing your show for at least the last 2 years, and there has been numerous times where
I think what
actually
inspired that article, I think there was a kid, it might have been a school shooting or an incel that went off on somebody. And we were trying, and then shortly thereafter, Anthony Bourdain.
Yeah,
because that actually happened the day you were on my show, and we didn't, without even knowing any details, you called that one.
Like Anthony Bourdain was a definite, prime textbook example of a zeroing out. But I think what people think is when I talk about, but just because Rollo Tomassi is telling all of this, it must have something to do with intersexual dynamics. You can be zeroed out and have nothing to do with your wife leaving you or, most times, of course, it is. It's a man worried about, losing his job and then losing his wife or losing his kids or not being the guy that he used to be, or he builds up his identity.
Did I send you the Billy Bush story? Billy Bush from what is it, E.T.? And he's the one that came out with the accusations against Trump, what he said on the bus. And his whole career came crashing down. That cost him his marriage. I know guys that are zeroed out because they lost their job. That's who they are.
Yeah.
And without that job, they have no self-worth. That's what happened. Billy Bush did that. Then his wife turned on him, and then she dumped him.
Yeah, I will give you the reason I'm pretty intimately aware of zeroing out is because I really think my father was. My dad pretty much his identity was invested in his job, and he was a vice president of a hospital for a while. Like he was in human resources, and then he got promoted to vice president, and then president of a hospital, a large medical thing, and that was who he was. And then the hospital gets bought out, and they pretty much fire off everybody who was part of the old administration. They put their own guys in, right? Because that's just the politics of the businesses of, big chain hospitals. My father at that point became a shadow of who he was before, because he used to be very proud of himself. He had something to, he had built equity, right? He built equity within himself. I talk about relational equity and why that's kind of a farce or why it's a myth, but there's also this idea, like a lot of guys will, particularly from the older generations, maybe your dad was like this, I don't know, but I think that from like maybe the baby boomer generations, where men would put their identity into what it is that they do. And when you take that away from them, or when you've got these guys who through technology or whatever, they become obsolete because they had a skill set that was very much in demand, and they could make a lot of money in one decade, and then the next decade, because of a new app, because of the new computers, because of the internet, because of whatever, now they're obsolete. Nobody needs what their skills are anymore, and they have to sort of adjust and evolve. Well, if your identity is invested into like who you are, who you're personally, I talk about ego investments all the time. If your ego is invested in like what it is that you do, and your status and the respect you command as a result of that, then that ends up, you take that away, that will zero you out. And more often than not, I mean, the joke is this, of course, Chris Rock was saying, like if you lose your job, your woman's not going to automatically like leave you right then and there, but the clock is ticking, right? That was a joke, right? And so wait long enough or be unemployed long enough, and it takes a real special woman to want to stick it out with you, and particularly so in this day and age where women are already encouraged to like through divorce porn to think that the grass is greener on the other side. It's better for you to cash out of this marriage right now while you can and restart your life or find a better looking guy, or now you're the one who's the primary breadwinner within the relationship. Now we talked about that before, when we've just talked about it on Rule Zero yesterday, is once that woman makes more money than you and you were the primary breadwinner and now she becomes a primary breadwinner, there is, even if it's not voiced, even if it's not consciously acknowledged, the woman is still thinking, her hindbrain, her lizard brain is still thinking, this guy is a burden. This guy is dead weight. I got to have somebody who's going to at least carry his own weight. And that's not to say that love can't like triumph over this, because you'll see guys who will, or you'll see women who will say, well, my husband had cancer and right up until he died, I stuck it out with him, and well, great. I'm not saying it's universal, but there's still that nagging doubt that it's that mental firmware that women have to sort of supersede if they can, that the guy is not, he can't protect, he can't provide. So therefore she's got to do it herself. And that's really where a lot of women kind of get off on this, like they have to be their own source of security. And if they've got a guy who can't do that, they end up filling that power vacuum themselves. And so guys have to deal with this because they were somebody before they got fired. They were somebody before whatever life changes happened, and now they become somebody else. And that's the real test of a man. And that's what I write about in that essay, Zeroed Out, is that when you are you a guy that is resilient enough to bounce back from a zeroing out? Are you the guy who goes, okay, I'm 55. I think, now this is me talking, okay? I think that one of the reasons why a guy who's like, say, between 45 and 55 years old, the reason that guy commits suicide is because he doesn't see any way forward. He doesn't see, like, he can't snap back from where he was. Like, say he was making, $1 million a year, and suddenly he goes down to $0 a year. Remember in the Great Depression when guys were like jumping out of windows because all of their stocks like went into the can, right? It's like that. It's like they don't see any way forward because they had something before, and that's who they were. And now, because of circumstances, it's pretty much killed off all any kind of equity that they had in themselves or that people respected. So they go from being this highly respected, highly paid, when they're with a woman who is only in it for the money or is only in it because of hypergamy, then that guy understand. You can talk about like subconscious and the hindbrain again. That guy's hindbrain realizes, I think, that either he has to snap back or he's just going to opt out and just kill himself. And I think that that's why these guys do that, because they are unable to do that. They don't see a way forward.
And it has a lot to do with the mindset too. And this isn't even in the relationship realm, but I have noticed that in the workplace, there's a lot of guys, and 40 seems to be the defining point. Where they are not willing to change. They're not willing to learn new things. They are set in their ways. And I've seen so many guys, even in the radio business, that if you're not willing to, change with the industry and adapt and be more valuable, give more value to your company, you're out the door. And those are the guys. In fact, I know one guy in particular, I really thought he was going to whack himself. And he's doing, like minimum wage jobs right now. His self-esteem is in the tank. And it's all tied in with that. I found out an interesting thing about my dad. Now, when I was a kid, my dad, I was born in Buffalo, but we moved to Erie, Pennsylvania. And my dad got a job. He was brought to Erie by Goodyear to be a manager for one of their stores. And he had that job for probably, I don't know, 7, maybe 9 years. And we had inspections back then. And he was not the kind of guy that would make you get things done to your car that you really didn't need. And they wanted him to push more of that. He didn't want to do it, right? Got shown the door. So he was out. Now, here's the thing. I didn't know that he lost his job. None of my brothers or sisters knew that he lost his job because every morning he got dressed up just like he used to, suit, tie, went to work, but he was going to BF Goodrich. And he had to start out in the garage changing tires. So he'd hang up the suit at work. He'd, put the blue overalls on, changing tires. I mean, it was a humbling experience for him, but he worked his way back up the chain. He got the job at that place, and then moved on to some other things down the road. But his mindset, the fact that he was still getting dressed up like that every morning, it was not only to let everybody know that he was still that way, but he was going to come back.
Yeah, he was going to snap back. Yeah, I was going to say that is, I think, really a lost art today. Now, it doesn't necessarily have to be you lost the girl, but a lot of times it is that you lost the girl, and and I think that one of the reasons, like there was that one tweet that or that one story, and I tweeted it out, or I think I retweeted it, that kid who lost his girlfriend to his roommate recently. I think I showed you that one. And the guy ended up offing himself because he thought that she was the one. And so it's not just about the monetary side of things. It's a belief. It's an ego investment. I think what happens for most guys is when they believe that they have a sense of equity, or they believe that their identity is based on what it is that they've built up about themselves. When you take that away, you're taking away that identity, and you're also taking away that hope and that future. Like when I see a guy because this kid who had shot himself over the girlfriend, and this is not uncommon. We've seen this before. When that guy does that, it rubs me the wrong way, I think, because you've got a guy who's in his 20s and he's got no excuse for thinking that he can't snap back, or he has all these years. When you talk about it to a guy who's in his 60s and he gets awakened while married, or he suddenly becomes red pill and realizes that within, maybe 60 or 70, he's looking back on his life and all of the decisions that he's made. That's where you're kind of like, okay, how many more years do I have of life, and how can I be effective? Can I snap back from this? Because when you take a guy who is maybe even his retirement age, and you take stuff away from him, you take away his business, you take away his retirement, you take away like Rick Ocasek, right? I mean, the guy was 75 years old, and now his wife decides to up and leave him. Yeah, I mean, what you were telling me a story off air, like before we came on here, about some guy that who died of a broken heart.
Okay, so when I was a kid, I had a paper route, and there was what I would call this Southern Belle. And in retrospect, looking back, she was probably about 66 at the time. Still a really good looking lady. Okay, so I'm 14, 15 at the time. Her husband was a college professor in town, and he adored her. She was the apple of his eye. And when he passed away, so every week I go there on Friday to collect, for the paper. And you could visibly see the decline in his physical condition, his posture, just like my friend I was talking about, the way he was carrying himself. And it continued to decline. And probably about 6 months in, his older daughter, who didn't live with them, answered the door. And I said, is Professor so-and-so home? She goes, he passed away. She said he died of a broken heart. And she was serious. I'm a kid. I'm like, she was, without her. And I actually thought this was going to happen to my mom when my dad passed away, because I told the story. My mother, she said something that was very profound. She said, he's the only friend I have, about my dad. When my dad left, when my dad passed away in May, I really thought she was going to go soon right behind, but she hasn't. She's bounced back. And it's because, she's got a big support system around her. But I think a real burden has been lifted from her. But I was really concerned that was going to happen next. You see a lot of couples where they die in very close proximity.
Right. Yeah, I was just going to say, it's like when I've been through at least a couple of these. Like personally, I've been zeroed out myself, but like I've always been confident enough in my abilities and my talents and everything else. I'll relate that story in a little bit, but what you're talking about here when it comes to like dying of a broken heart, it's when when couples, like older couples, like grow old together,
Right.
and the wife dies and the man is left over, that guy is pretty much guaranteed to die within a year and a half after his wife is gone. Like I think it was what was it? Stanley's wife had died like maybe like a few years before he did. And that's a very common instance. Like, I don't think it's quite so common for women, because when a man, because usually statistically the man's going to die first. If if the couple, stands the test of time, the man is going to be the one that goes first, and the woman's going to,
especially if they're the same age.
Yeah, about the same age. The woman's going to endure a little bit longer, depending on the strength of the relationship. If that woman felt that guy was the patriarch of the family, if that guy, if she felt like he was like the love of her life, her alpha, her soulmate, whatever she wants to call it, then maybe it's probably a little bit more likely that woman is going to pass away within another, year or two, maybe 2 years afterwards. Some women report being relieved that their husband is gone. So it's just, I think it's sort of dependent on the quality of the relationship, but particularly with guys, I think that once their spouse dies, that it is really difficult for them to snap back, particularly when they're 75 years old and they're looking down at maybe the next 10 to 15 years. I don't know exactly what the stats are, but I have looked into a geriatric suicide. And that's a very common instance. If the guy thought that his wife, the old guy thought that his old wife was his soulmate, he's more likely to off himself rather than like look at the next like 15 years living in assisted living.
We just had one around here not long ago.
I know that's depressing.
Well, no, where the wife had Alzheimer's, and the police were called to the house. The husband had shot her in the head and shot himself.
Yeah.
Just the stress of taking care of, if you've ever been around somebody that's got dementia.
Oh yeah, my father died from dementia, actually.
So the stress, I mean, just because it's basically like you're watching. It looks like your husband. It sounds like your husband. Yeah, he's not there. He's checked out.
You leave the room and you're somebody else. Yeah,
you're almost watching a grown kid.
Oh yeah. Hey, I want to answer this super chat from Sam Whiskey, because this is sort of where we're going with this. Sam, thank you for the $4.99. He says, "Can you get zeroed out more than one time, or do you become immune to it?" I don't think so. Yes, you can most definitely get zeroed out more than once, and I'm living proof of that. When I was right after my border, when I was with my BPD girlfriend, I was definitely zeroed out right after that, because I was just gutted by the whole thing. And now granted, I was young enough to snap back from that, but I can think of probably at least 3 different times that I've been zeroed out. One of those actually was back in 2013. When I had built up a very strong network. I built up a very strong business with my liquor brands and doing what I was doing for a living at that time. And then when they decided to divest that company after I had put so much into that company, now this was me personally, and this was like sort of a financial zeroing out. I got a really good severance package. I knew what I wanted to do afterwards, and that's actually I snapped back from that and came back even better than before, because that prompted me or pushed me in a direction that I probably should have been going in the first place, which was like working for myself and becoming a little bit more I don't say independent, but more self-sufficient with respect to like how I was making money and what I was doing. Now I had the benefit of having ownership stakes in some of these brands, and also being able to, having that preset network. So I snapped back from it, but boy, man, for that first 8 months of that, I'm like, what the hell am I going to do? And I was starting to sort of, panic, because I didn't know what I wanted to do, until you sort of settle down, you get into a routine. Like, it's interesting to me, like when you go through, like men, I think a lot of guys thrive on routine. I'm not one of those guys, but like, I understand why guys do. Because you get up, you go to work, you put in your 40 hours a week, you commute, whatever, you got the work-a-day job going, and that's routine. And that's something that I think that a lot of guys don't really appreciate, the fact, like once you're cut away from that and you don't have routine, it's all on you. And that was tough for me. Like when I was cut away from my routine, that's when I had to sort of reinvent myself personally too, because who I was back in, like, say 2010 till 2013 is not who I am today. Another thing I keep stressing is that men you need to understand that your personality will change. You're not the same person today that you were 5 years ago. And that's why I say personality is not static. That's a behavioral psychology principle right there, is understanding that. But yes, you can be zeroed out multiple times. In fact, many men are. That's the problem. That's exactly what I was saying. The problem is when a guy gets to be about 45 to 55 years old within that 10-year stretch, that's when they don't know how to snap back from it, because they can't get hired because they're old. That ageism kind of thing. They can't go back to that workaday thing, but they can be like the guy that you were just talking about, Pat, which was the guy who still insists on keeping his routine and keeping his regimen and staying disciplined, and then working through it and still saying, you know what, doesn't matter if I had to do the same thing. When the company that I was working for got divested, I moved back across the country, back to Reno. I had to start working for the casinos again, which I swore to myself I would never go back to working for casinos or in the gaming industry after I got into the alcohol industry. And here I was working and doing promos and stuff. And that actually helped me, like, because I had that base, that regularity, that helped me focus on what I really wanted to do, which was get the hell out of there again.
What is your objection to the casino industry?
Well, it's just something I had done over and over and over again. It's not
okay, some moral thing or anything.
Well, here's the thing. Here's one of the things. Like I went from being a graphic designer to a senior graphic designer to being an art director to being a brand manager to being like a promotions guy, and I have this sort of this progress of my career, my real career, to what I do today, which is independent stuff. But so I've gone from all of that, and it's not that I don't like the work. I like to be creative. I like to do the things that I like to do, but I just sometimes doing it for the people you have to do it for is just what you want to know. Why I got into psychology was so that I could understand the people that I had to work with, and so that I could be more effective in dealing with egos and personalities like that.
A lot of people that get into that field are trying to figure themselves out.
That is true.
I found that out from various professors.
Well, the great thing is, like, I work so closely with a lot of the general managers, and these guys are multimillionaires, like, many times over. And so getting behind the scene and seeing how things work, it was great for me because it expanded me into all kinds of other areas. So I know how the casinos run. I know how the promotions are done. I know how the Players Club works. I know how I would probably be a very good, like, junior, I guess, general manager just from being experienced from that.
For those people that say, well, I'm too old, right? I like to bring up the story of Colonel Sanders from Kentucky Fried Chicken.
Yeah,
he didn't even start hitting it until he was like 67.
Yeah,
I mean, and it was astronomical from there.
Yeah, I want to hit on this one as well here. This is from Pedro, because this is sort of what we're talking. Pedro Ariola. Do you have some advice after being zeroed out? I broke up with a girl 1 year. After 1 year, she cheated. This is kind of getting into what we were going to talk about cheating and stuff too. She has high SMV. I'm a classic example of using red pill to game a girl, but then I went blue pill. So I would say that in that instance, the most likely reason why you are in the position that you're in, or you think that you're being zeroed out with her, is because you overinvested. You're still clinging to those blue pill ideals. And so what happens is what happened to my brother-in-law when he killed himself. We want to talk about another zeroing out. That was definitely a zeroing out, because you have a guy here who had, from the time he was 19 years old until he was about 40 years old when he offed himself, had done everything for his family to build,
what he wants, though, is advice. Here, let me throw this at you, okay? Mm-hmm. First of all, you got to cut the cord. You have to completely, if she's on social media, you got to block her. You can't be thinking about her. Anytime you're spending thinking about her is wasted time. You've got to move on. So many guys sit around, they go through these stages of griefs, stewing about, this, if I had only done this or that, or then like when we were down in Orlando for the 21 convention, a number of guys came up, how do I get my ex back? Well, first of all,
you don't
get her back. There's a reason you're not with her right now. Why invest in something that's already broken?
Yeah, exactly. And that's one of the iron rules of Tomasi, is you never root through garbage once it's been dragged to the curb.
That's the other thing I said. The guy from the wreck, I said him the iron rules of Tomasi. I said read them, learn them, apply them.
Yeah, no, read it, love her, love it.
Get it good, right?
Yeah, and well, I think the primary thing is to unlearn all of the blue pill idealism that prompted you to be zeroed out in the first place. One of the reasons, like my brother-in-law, I would just use him as an example again, is one of the reasons he felt zeroed out and he felt like he couldn't live without. He literally said, I can't live without my wife. And of course, she decides to up and leave him. And now that is made manifest in him hanging himself. So why is that? Why? He was still 40 years old. He could have very easily, like, taken what he built and build something else with it. But because of his headspace and because of his blue pill conditioning, he didn't see any way forward. And that right there is the most important part. If you want to be a little bit more zeroing out proof, you need to give up this blue pill idealism. You need to give, and that's one of the reasons why I get so pissed off at these purple pill hacks, because they still think that it's okay to go back and you might be red pill, but you can still be blue pill, and you can still go get all of that blue pill idealistic goals met with just using some of these red pill techniques, and here, do it for $700 an hour. That's what pisses me off.
Stay away from alcohol. Stay away from drugs.
Yes.
Stay away from medicating or sedating your mind, because you'll only make stupid decisions.
Yes. So you have to unlearn what you've learned. And I think that if you're young enough, and you could see this, like whenever we talk about unplugging guys, 9 times out of 10, when guys hit me up, or they send me, like, I've got probably at least 4 different emails in my inbox right now about how these guys are going through exactly the same situation, where it's like, I broke up with my girlfriend and I don't know what to do. I'm destitute. I can't figure things out. I want to go back to her, but I don't think that that's the best thing. Go through all this stuff, but they don't see any way forward. They get nihilistic. They get angry. They get despondent because they don't see any way forward. And I think you're exactly right. First of all, is don't start drinking. Definitely don't start doing opioids and any of this other stuff. Don't turn to drugs to deal with that. I know it's hard, and that's why
don't get vengeful. Don't think about getting back at her.
You look. Most guys will look for, when they get zeroed out by a woman, they want to reconnect that good feeling that they got. Because when you break up with a woman, it's literally like detoxing from your reward centers in your brain. So if the reward is coming from the woman, whether it's sex or it's affection or it's love or it's whatever you want to call it, there is a chemical component to that as well. People are saying, well, it's a dopamine hit. Yeah, but it's the pleasure.
Everybody knows there's been like maybe 1 or 2 women you've met in your life that the way, you see, here's the thing, you just nailed it too. The way they made you feel. Okay. That's not the way guys think rationally. Women feel. You're on their turf now. You're with them because of the way they made you feel. You've just turned over control of the frame.
Right. Okay. So
maybe feel this way or that way.
So here's the thing, and I'm going to answer this one up here really quick here too, is what does Rollo think about antidepressants? I'm not going to go and deny that there isn't some sort of physical aspect to depression. There can be. There is clinical medical depression. But I think first of all, I think drugs are overprescribed. Big pharma is they're pill happy. They want to give you a pill for whatever it is. I have never been on antidepressants. I've never had the need to do anything like that. I've been a pretty upbeat guy for most of my life. I've never had to experience that, but I know people who have. And what they relate to me is that they simply don't care about anything anymore. It like cuts off you
become comfortably numb.
You're
lethargic. You just don't care.
And that's what was it? SSRIs, I think that's what it's called. I forget.
Here, let me throw a quick story.
Yeah, go ahead.
A friend of mine, Donna, I won't use her last name. Her second husband died in a tragic airplane crash. She was crushed, right? So about 6-7 weeks in, she goes to the doctor asking for Prozac. And she says, I'm depressed. He says, no, I'm not going to give you Prozac. He says, you're supposed to be depressed. He says, this is part of the grieving process. He says, you're going to get through this. And he a good doctor, because he could have easily written the script for it, but it's not the solution. She's got to deal with that particular problem. There are people out there who need, antidepressants, anti-anxiety medication. Here's the kicker, though. It's not meant to be on for life.
It's something,
it is overprescribed. And it is abused by people too. There's a whole black market for that kind of stuff as well. So, that's another thing. What you're doing is you're numbing your mind. Whether it's alcohol, drugs, legal prescription drugs, illegal drugs, those are all going to slow down your recuperation. They're going to slow down your comeback.
Yeah. Yeah. That's interesting. I'm going to put this up here real quick. This is awesome. I got over a breakup by hitting the gym. Yes. You want to, if you want to, trigger that positive feelings, get to the gym. It is a stress relief.
There's lift weights, do something.
Exactly. Yeah. Do something. Swim. Yeah. Lift, whatever you have to do. I know a guy who was a rock climber who was doing like rock climbing to get over a girl. One time he said it was the easiest way to do it because you're on a rock, man. You gotta concentrate on whatever the hell it is that you're doing. Otherwise you fall off the damn rock. That's definitely, I mean, one of the reasons why guys in the red pill community or whatever, if you're unplugging from the matrix, one of the first things they'll tell you to do is to get into the gym. And there's a lot more to that than just, look better and get your 6-pack abs back or something. It's a lot more than just looks maxing. There's the feeling, there's a mental state that goes along with that a lot of guys, if they've never lifted in their lives, they suddenly it's this epiphany for them that's how they can get their good high. But getting back to the antidepressants thing is, I mean, I understand that Jordan Peterson has been on antidepressants for a very long time. And if anybody is familiar with the story that's going on right now, apparently he has checked himself into a rehab somewhere in New York. His daughter had put some video out, I think, on her YouTube channel about like what the situation was. And I honestly, having your daughter, I would not want my daughter to be my PR. No. I love my daughter, but I don't want her to be my PR section here.
He may not have known that she did that.
He might not have known either. But okay, so here's the thing, and I'm glad we started talking about antidepressants here because he is on, what is it, clonazepam or something like that?
And that's a peculiar one to be on. It's sort of an old school thing. I'm telling you, there's a real black market for that now on some of these research chemical websites, and people are obviously abusing it. I guess you can get high on it, dose related, but apparently it's very addictive because they said he started it just this year. That one. Which is he put himself in a position where he did this because of his wife's cancer diagnosis, right?
Yeah. He originally, this is what she said. This is what his daughter said, that he originally started getting on antidepressants to deal with the stress and the anxiety of the diagnosis of his wife having cancer. Okay, understand that. But I also know that he was on antidepressants long before this because he was talking about them on Joe Rogan well before any of this stuff happened. And also, I think you saw this episode. Remember, I think it was about a couple of years ago, maybe a year and a half ago, when Tucker Carlson was doing his Men in America series. And I think one of the first shows,
right?
Yeah, one of his first shows, he had Peterson on there, and I think Tucker was trying to like razz him up to get him to be a little more animated. And you could tell that he was either off his meds or really heavily medicated because it was just sort of this blank, monotone look to the guy. And I don't know, to me, it seemed like maybe there was something a little bit off with him chemically, but he has been very open. I mean, if you read any of his books, I think it was, what was it? Maps of Meaning. He talks about his depression, his clinical depression that he's had for a long time. Add to that the guy is very much blue pill and very much one-itis. People say, well, what do you mean he's very blue pill when it comes to women? And the reason for that is because he has limited his experience with women to one woman. And if you know anything about his history, he married his wife, the wife that he met when he was 7 years old, and told he was very proud of this story. He tells his dad, I'm going to marry that girl one of these days, and has pretty much limited his personal experience, his personal interactions with just his wife. Okay, that sounds real sweet. That's the high school sweetheart thing. That's all that, but it limits his understanding and it limits his experience.
Yeah, he's not the guy for relationship advice.
Not for relationship. Now, I'm not coming down on him. I'm not going to shit on him. I think he does what he does. Okay, but I've never seen him as a red pill guy. I think he has some pretty interesting things to say, and then on top of that, I think he kind of drops the ball in a lot of other areas as well. However, I think that and this is what concerns me here, is that I think that when his soulmate dies, he's going to be one of these guys who gets zeroed out. He's going to be one of these guys who has to, either deal with what has just happened, or he's going to go into some, like he wants to talk about, he's going to go into a tailspin. That's what will happen. Remember what we were saying is when one member of the couple dies, particularly if that guy is very heavily invested in that one woman, more than likely that guy's either going to off himself or something. He's not going to, I don't know if it's, maybe it's something about the depression, or it's something chemically that reduces your immunities, maybe that, so that you are more prone to be sick, you're more prone to, to die out, I guess, if you don't have that person there with you. I hope that doesn't happen. I don't wish that on anybody. I don't care whether it's Jordan Peterson or whoever. I think that's real shitty that a lot of these, a lot of bloggers and a lot of e-personalities, e-celebrities right now are sort of coming down on him because they're looking for, and they smell, when Twitter smells blood in the water, they will shit all over him. They will try to cut him more.
Yeah, everybody's trying to discredit everything he said because he's got an addiction
because of
problem.
That one. Yeah.
Look at Sigmund Freud. Freud was a coke addict for the last 20 years.
Yep. Yeah, very much so.
True story.
Yeah, there's a lot of okay, but does that negate anything that the guy had to say?
I don't think it does.
I don't think it does either.
Although I don't go to coke addicts generally for
advice.
Yeah,
exactly.
I mean, you should be told that, but it doesn't discredit everything.
Well, remember back then too, cocaine was the drug of choice. Back then, it was something that, because they were prescribing cocaine for mental patients back then, because they thought that it was the next wonder drug.
What could go wrong?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I hope he doesn't zero out, but this is the reason I'm concerned with this, is because I see an Anthony Bourdain type thing in the brewing here. I hope, like I said, I hope he doesn't, but I think it's really shitty that people are coming down on him for this. But again, look at this in real time. Look at what's happening here. He's got a lot of money, but like, I think a lot of people were like tripping out on Anthony Bourdain because the guy had a lot of celebrity. He had a lot of money. Yeah. Why on earth? He could get another chick. He could get a way hotter girl than Asia Argento.
Why did he do it?
Yeah.
So Jeff Bezos, though, because Jeff Bezos, despite all his incredible wealth, okay, he at the heart of things is a beta. That's what he is. That's all he can do. That's all he knows.
Yeah. And I think Dan Bilzerian was on Joe Rogan. Was he on Joe Rogan? Yeah, he was on Joe Rogan. Yeah, and he was talking about like how he wanted to settle. He's like, oh, I've got all this money and all this, e-fame, I guess. But he's got all this money. He's got hot chicks, in every bed, and talking about how it doesn't make you happy. It's not happiness, and saying that to a guy who's like this poor kid in Tijuana, it's like, no, that seems like happiness to me. I think that when it, like, the money side of things is not an insurance policy against being zeroed out. You don't have to lose your job to be zeroed out. You could lose your money and you could be zeroed out, but you don't have to, because if your head is still stuck in that blue pill beta mindset, you lose the woman, you'll be a millionaire and you'll be suicidal. You look at guys like, and I hate to use these guys because I don't necessarily know what their personal situations were, but it occurs to me, if you look at a guy like Kurt Cobain, or you look at a guy like Chris Cornell, or you look at the guys like the suicides of very popular rich rock stars, or in some cases athletes too, you look at what it is that led them up to that suicide. Do you know who? Do you remember who Junior Seau is? Junior Seau from the San Diego Chargers. Yeah. A lot of that, I believe, or better, maybe here's a better example, is Robin Williams. Robin Williams had everything going for him. He had a lot of money, but he was paying it out to multiple ex-wives. And why did he get those ex-wives in the first place? Because he's still locked into that blue pill way of thinking. So I think that if you want to, I don't think you're going to ever be immune to being zeroed out, because bad things are going to happen to good people. So how you
that was my next
snap back from those? Yeah, I think
what are the red flags that men need to look for that are precursors to being zeroed out? And we want to tie, how does a woman's infidelity tie into this as well?
Yeah. Well, okay. If you wanted to talk about, like, you and I think we were going to talk about like the precursors to cheating. I think that a lot of guys on some level of consciousness understand. I think we have sort of this instinctual understanding whether whether our woman is devoted to us, is prioritizing us, or if she's got her attention somewhere else. And I think that we, from an instinctual level, like on a gut check, right? On a gut check level, I think we understand these cues, but we don't want to acknowledge them. We want to rationalize them away. We want to say, she wouldn't do that. We're rational people. She's just as rational as I am, and if I just sit down with her at the coffee table, we can talk this out, or we can negotiate things, or we can make things work for us. I think that's the first mistake guys make, is that they don't go with their gut. They don't listen to their instincts. Those instincts are there for a reason, because in your subconscious, you're seeing things going on in your periphery that don't align with either what she's saying or what the personality that she used to be. Now this could go for guys too. I don't want, if any females are watching this, I'm not picking on just one sex here, but
you're talking about getting zeroed out. That happens all the time too.
Yeah, women get zeroed out as well. I don't know how. I would like to say it's more common for guys to get zeroed out, because the burden of performance is on the man as opposed to the woman. I think a lot of women, if they are responsible for zeroing out a guy, it's usually around the time when they are at their late 30s. Maybe they're still good look. They believe that they're still good looking enough to get a better guy, to say, okay, this guy's not my, I wish I would have got with the guy from my college years. I can still have that. All I got to do is dump this guy and go eat, pray, love, and I can live a better life. I think what guys need to look at when it comes around to red flags is realize what the personal conditions are of the woman that you're with at that time. Also understand where she is on that timeline that I outlined in preventive medicine. What is she most likely to be thinking at that particular time? So if you got a woman who's like semi good looking, she's like, say, 38 years old, it's a possibility, unless you're in a relationship that you are the most alpha dominant, you're her soulmate, right? You're the one that she wants to be with all the time. You might be a little bit more concerned to say, okay, she's 38, she's good looking. She might be going through sort of an existential crisis at this point, because she wants to see if she can get the better guy later on down the road. She wants to go with, door number 1 instead of door number 2. So there's time frame questions I think that guys need to ask. And of course, is like, is your wife suddenly interested in going and working out with a personal trainer at that particular time? There's externals, behavioral cues that can, are you getting in different fights? What are you fighting over? How are you engaging in those fights? If suddenly she becomes aggravated more, does she turn into a different person?
Or if the fighting all of a sudden stops.
Yeah. Or that. I think you and I were talking about that. And by the way, I thought, if anybody has not listened to our conversation on Friday on your show, this is just me saying this, I thought that was one of the best shows that we've ever done. We talked about how men and women fight, and we went over the Esther Perel. Esther Perel.
We started with the nail. It's not.
It's not the nail. If anybody hasn't seen that, I'll put a link to it in the.
That is so spot on, though, and I mean, women agree with that too. When they see it, they go, "Yeah, that's pretty much how it is." I don't want you to. In fact, I had a discussion with my producer after the show. She goes, when she has an argument with her husband, Ed, she goes, I don't want him to fix the problem. I want him to listen. Mm-hmm. I want him to understand. I want him to empathize.
Yeah.
It's not about the nail. Yeah, but if we took that out, those headaches would. No, it's not about the nail. It's not about.
I really, we need to dedicate a show to that at some point, because I was just getting started on that show, because the way that women interpret how to fight with a guy is going to be completely different from the way that a guy does. Guys want to solve a problem. They see a problem. They want to solve the problem. The woman doesn't want to solve the problem. She wants to be heard. She wants to feel the conversation. She wants to be like, again, it's like how men and women communicate, but we can come back to that. So let's see, we're getting pretty I know you got a hard out today at 5. So do you want to start getting some of these supers?
Sure. We got more on the other. Let's go through the supers right now. Let's do the
Okay,
supers.
let's go for the supers here. I already talked. Let's see. I got to Pedro's, Sam Whiskey. We got to you.
You want to talk about who's the football player that just got dropped from the Patriots?
Anthony, or excuse me, Antonio Brown. Yeah, that was
this guy. Gone are the days when innocent until proven guilty. This guy lost his job with the Patriots. They let him go because of accusations, some text messages. He hasn't been tried in a court. Apparently, another woman came forward with similar things. You can destroy a man with mere accusations today. Right. In fact, he was quoted, I think, on Twitter today saying, "I'm never going to play in the NFL again."
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like
he's damaged goods.
Yeah, what was it? He's one more example of this. It's easy to point out like how easy it is for a woman to zero out a guy, like to intentionally do that with just suspicion, with just accusations, because it's no longer about the court of like law. It's now the court of social justice and social media right now. So all it takes is one accusation, and here's
the problem with Antonio. Okay, he's a football player. Problem number one is he hired a female trainer. That's first of all, if you're serious about football, you're not hiring a female trainer. You're going to have a guy training you. I long for the days when the gym was just for the guys. Seriously, once you introduced the women, it became a pickup bar. You know, and people back in the day in a real hardcore gym, everybody was there to just work out, not to scan around for the next piece of ass.
Yeah,
but that's and Donovan picked this part. Donovan did a great show on it. He called the lady out. You know, the lady didn't go to the police with this. This is going right to court because she wants to shake him down for cash. And she very cleverly saved all of the text messages and whatnot. But problem number one is he should have never lined himself up with a female trainer.
Yeah, well, and of course, when you're, have you heard the saying like too much, too young, too fast?
Yep.
Like, there's a guys who get too much success too quickly, and they haven't had the time to learn how to deal with that. This is a real good example of that. But what this is also an example of is that in today's society, in our internet age, in our social media age, just the accusations, just the suspicion is enough to zero a guy out, and also enough to make it make it seem to the guy that he can't snap back from it, because those accusations are out there. So if a guy wants to get a regular day job after he's been accused of sexual harassment or whatever, all it takes is one quick Google search on the guy's name, and he can't work anymore. Women and the feminine imperative, whatever you want to call it, can, according, this is a Rouge term, but they will steal your bread, meaning that they make it to the point where you are unemployable, and it would almost be better to go to jail, because at least you got like 3 square meals a day, and you're pretty much got a roof over your head. Whereas if you are zeroed out to the point where you can no longer work anymore because of these accusations, that's almost a worse fate than actually committing a crime. So that's another part of this zeroing out that guys are having to kind of have to account for. Now, was he stupid to do something like that? Yes. You talk about these guys or these football players who are in college, and they get one accusation from a jilted girl. Like maybe the girl is jealous because the guy dumped her and picked up another girl, and so she says, so-and-so raped me.
Right.
Now he's got to deal with that. Now he gets cut from the team. Now all of his bright future that he was going to have in the NFL or whatever, playing Major League Baseball, whatever, all of that's out the window. And now he's the guy who was accused of rape when he had this bright future ahead of him. And now they make a big, the media makes a huge circus out of it.
He put out, Antonio Brown put out some text messages that were sent to the lady, including pictures of her children, which is it's just stupid here. Anybody that looks at this will go, well, clearly he was trying to intimidate her. And that was the tipping point for the NFL. But again, any of these accusations that we hear about, we don't even know if they're true. And it doesn't matter, because mission accomplished. His career's been destroyed.
Right, exactly. Let me get to some of these supers here, because we're just got 30 minutes left here. Martin Van Ball, 50 whatever SEK is. I don't even know what that is. My ex is texting me after a harsh breakup. She cheated and moved in with another dude. She is texting me, and I am the love of her life and the best sex partner. Why? Well, because she is alpha widowed from you. That's probably why. She probably thought it was a much better. She thought that the grass was greener on the other side. And do you want to move on? What are you going to do about it? Yeah.
She's
an alpha widow.
Do they have kids? Does he have to maintain some sort of, communication with her?
Mm-hmm.
The other thing is I would take screenshots of everything she sends.
Cover everything.
Make sure and has copies.
Yeah. And the other thing is the only reason you're asking me this question is probably because you're contemplating getting back with her, or you're contemplating at least having sex with her once or twice or whatever it is that you what do you think is going to happen?
Don't do it.
Don't do it.
Don't do it. There's a lot of people that get back together just for the sex. And it's like you just tore a scab off. It's an open wound. Why do you do that? Move on.
Yeah. She made the mistake. Let her live with her mistake. Simple as that. Miguel and Angel Casillas. AskMen.com tries to altruistically explain the meaning, logic, benefits, and overcoming the biological male resistance to compersion. I don't know what the hell that is. Mainstream PC synonymous with cuckoldry helps solidify zeroing out. I don't know where you're going with that, man. I don't know what compersion is. Is it compression or compersion? I don't even know if that's even a word. But I don't know. I would be very skeptical of anything that comes out of Ask Men, because Ask Men is run by women. So they might as well say Ask Women, because that's pretty much the majority of their writers.
What is it? The Good Men Project?
Good Men Project.
There's chicks behind that typewriter.
Yeah, behind that. I'm glad actually kind of glad this came up, because if you look at old school media like GQ or even Maxim and certainly even Playboy magazine right now is all run by females, all run by either written for, but it's interesting how they're supposed to be male oriented media, but it's almost a form of propaganda right now. So I would be very wary of anything coming out of Ask Men.
Here's my deal. And it's a friend of mine, Jim Stovall, has it too. He's an accomplished author, entrepreneur. Don't take advice from anybody who doesn't already have what you want. Mm-hmm. For example, if you want to become a millionaire, talk to a millionaire or somebody that's a billionaire. All right. Mm-hmm. If you want a 10, talk to somebody that's got a 10, who's been able to keep a 10. Mm-hmm. Don't take advice from people. It's like, why would I go to marriage counseling with a Catholic priest? Seriously. Mm-hmm. Somebody who's never been married, doesn't know what it's like. What kind of advice is he going to be able to give me?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think it was Rich Cooper was saying something to that effect too, is like, look at the people who are giving you advice. Would you want to trade lives with them? In any way, shape, or form.
A lot of times it's going to be no.
Yeah. Most of the time it's going to be no. Again, from Miguel, thanks for the $5, brother. It says, be all I can be. Peace, quiet, and freedom. MGTOW. Okay. Thank you for your MGTOW. Moving on. Let's see. Thank you for that $2. South Carolina. Isidore Calderon. Like my accent. $10. In movies like Crazy Stupid Love, the ex-wife uses social leverage to turn mutual friends against the man. Yes. Choosing sides. Do you think this is really common? Yes, absolutely I do. And I'll tell you why. Because women tend to maintain larger, more complex social networks. And I don't mean that by Facebook. That's one way to facilitate that. But women tend to be more collectivist. And so they look upon other women for support when they're in time of crisis. Mm-hmm. So and I've talked to dozens of guys about this, particularly the guys. You want to know why guys tend to zero out or they tend to feel isolated, is because they don't have other dudes to rely upon. They don't have some other guy to talk about.
Girlfriends up on the phone.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And they have much smaller social networks, if they have any networks at all. I was reading an article in the Boston Globe about how middle-aged men don't have any friends, or what the hell was it? It was there's a survey that said most people today don't have any like real close friends. What are you talking about?
Here's the deal. My brother Philip, myself, and my brother Charles have a mutual friend. His name's Kevin.
Mm-hmm.
He's a fireman. He's single. He still goes down to Florida for spring break every year, which is a little creepy at this point. But he made a comment to my brother Philip the other day, which just had me howling. He goes, "Man," he goes, "I can't wait till your kids are grown up and out of the house so we can start hanging around."
Yeah, that's tough.
Phil goes, "You don't get it. It's not how it works. You don't get it. We moved on." So it's not that we don't like them or anything. It's just things change, right?
Yeah. And there's the logistics side of things, but again, for the way that guys interpersonally relate is different than the way that women do. Men have to have some sort of unifying like hobby or project or something that they can collectively work on so that they can develop friendships. Whereas women, because they're interested in the feelings of, they converse differently, they communicate differently with each other. So because women enjoy the act of communication, because they enjoy the context, the feelings that they get, they are kind of like, friendship junkies. They want to go and let's go have coffee. I want to catch up, blah, blah, blah. Guys, it's like, hey, I got a car I need to fix. Let's go see if we can repair this car together. And you start talking and stuff. Well, now
let's get together for coffee and
yeah.
on things, the kids and everything.
Yeah. So anyway, so hopefully that answered your question there, Isadore. Philip, $10. Thanks, brother. Rollo, how does one handle unplugging their blue-pilled married father? Ooh, that's a good one. I'm afraid to do so because I don't know if he'll be able to handle the red pill at the ripe old age of 59, but don't want him to get zeroed out. Yeah.
The ripe old age of 59.
59, I know. God, I was like, I'm almost there. I know. Yeah, so
first of all, you cannot change. This is one of the great truths. It took me until about 40 to figure this out. Okay. The only person you can change is yourself.
Mm-hmm.
That's the only person. People get married thinking they can change the other person. You're delusional. The only person you can change is yourself. As far as your dad goes, you can provide him with the information. What he does with it is entirely up to him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. And
you're going to change your dad. You're going to help him out. I mean, you may be stirring up a hornet's nest there you don't want to get into.
I think really the question you need to ask is, why do you want to change him? Why do you want to unplug him? I get this all the time because when a guy gets unplugged, when the guy, I get emails from guys just saying all the time, like, I bought 3 of your books. I'm handing them out to my friends. How do I, get through to them? Because they all think I'm a misogynist now, or they all think that, they don't like my opinion on women right now. And I'm like, okay, well, the first thing you can do is don't just throw my book at them and say, here, read this book. What you have to do is sort of feel out where you think your friend, or in this case, your father. I know that a lot of guys want to evangelize about the red pill. Don't do that. Don't evangelize the red pill, because you will end up. Rich Cooper says that reading The Rational Male is like drinking from a fire hose. So when you try to, like, informationally, right, there's too much information at one time. So you have to go back and reread it. And like I said, it's a living text. But imagine now you have this fire hose of information and you're just like turning it on your dad. And he's, you just like, here, come on, you got to go unplug, please.
It's like somebody that's into multi-level marketing. They got the great sell you, or somebody that quit smoking and now they're going to make it their life's mission to get everybody else to quit smoking. Just leave me alone.
Yeah. So don't, first of all, ask yourself, why do you want to unplug them in the first place? Is it going to better their life? Is it going to save their life? Are you going to try to prevent him from getting zeroed out? Well, first of all, look at why you are afraid he would be zeroed out in the first place. That's what I would suggest. First of all, second of all is do it slowly, do it gradually. Don't just throw my book in his lap and go, hey, read this. Point out certain aspects in his life, certain situations, certain circumstances, maybe whether you see it on the news, on whatever you're watching, maybe within your family, because it's a family situation, or your friends, your circle of friends. Point out instances of like red pill awareness, like use your red pill lens and say, what do you think about this? And ask those questions.
Here's a good example. You don't want to throw the book at him. Give him the article, The Iron Rules of Tomasi. What is it? 2 pages. His lap go, what do you think about these? Or any of these? If any of these been true in your life, what do you think? I'm interested in your opinion. Rather than a hard sell, it's a soft sell. You're circumventing, you're sort of getting to him, but through a different direction.
Yeah. So look for those instances where you can point those truths out to that guy, look for those instances, and then work on it from there and build up from there, and then have those conversations with the guy before you go and you hand him my book. That's probably the best way. And that holds true not just for your family, but like, or a 59-year-old guy. That holds true for pretty much everybody that you're dealing with. Practical Stoic, $2 says, practice stoicism, be around nature, and work out. All right, good advice.
Did you do YOLO?
Say that again?
Did you do YOLO? My mother in the Child Protection Services in Norway.
No, I haven't. I'm getting up to that one though. Okay. Calvin Mortley says, talking about blue pill, if a man is with many women, does it diminish his capacity to pair bond with one woman over the long term? You want the controversial answer to that one? Controversial answer is no, it doesn't. And I've got research that backs this up. I'm not gonna say it proves it.
The more partners they've had.
Yeah. This is one of those differences between men and women. And of course, women are going to go, oh, how convenient. No, it's absolutely true, because men's mating strategy is different. We have different priorities in our mating strategy than women do. Women are looking for quality. Men are looking for quantity. It's just the way we're built. So as a result of that, men's mental firmware makes it easier for them to have sex and then ejaculate and evacuate, right? In fact, that's in our ancestral past, in our evolutionary, beginnings. It behooved a man to be able to copulate, have sex, and get out as quick as he can because of environmental threats or personal threats or whatever else. That doesn't really hold. That's kind of a vestige. It's a vestige, like it's vestigial. It's something that we have to sort of deal with now in this day and age. But there it is. So as a result of that, yes, guys can compartmentalize sex from actually bonding and stuff. So can a guy have like 10, can a guy have 40 plus notch count and still have a 23-year marriage? Yeah, absolutely. That's just one of those unfair things in life. Sorry, girls. Pedro also says, I appreciate the advice. My super chat. Yeah, thank you. Okay, here we are. YOLO. My mother and child protection services. Norway zeroed out my father and didn't let him meet his children. He died. Could he move on without the kids? What do you think? I don't know.
Which one is
this is the YOLO one that I think you were talking about. My mother and the child protection services. Norway zeroed out my father and didn't let him meet his children.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know I don't know what the personal situation was. He an asshole? Was he violent? Was there something else that was going on in his background that they didn't allow him to?
The story, what was it, about a week ago, where the lady's got twins and she's tormenting the husband because she's raising the one boy, they're both boys, as a girl, and the husband, by court order, is not allowed to refer to his own son by any sort of male pronoun, and he has This is just the mother being an absolute asshole and tormenting, using the kids. This is cynical, or it's not cynical. It's sinister, using the kids as pawns to get back at her husband.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think that right now, I think they're doing something like that in Canada as well, where just the way that our legal system is bent towards women, towards favoring women right now. Can the state zero out a guy? Absolutely. Particularly if that guy really I don't know what's going on with YOLO's situation, but I will say this is that, can a guy get zeroed out because he got divorced? Absolutely. Can he get zeroed out because he lost custody of his kids and he really wants to see and have a connection with his own children? Yes, he can. So those are some things to watch out for. And here's the other thing is if you know a guy who has been zeroed out in that way, be careful. Like maybe you want to reach out to that guy. I'll tell you, one of the biggest regrets that I had is when my brother-in-law was splitting up with my sister-in-law, I really, really regretted not paying more attention to him or not calling him up and saying, hey, dude, are you okay? Like I just went about my business because I thought that the dude was so because he, by all impressions, he was very in control of his game, very understanding, and I thought the guy would be particularly this guy, because he built so much of a life from scratch that he'd be able to do it again. And then, you know, a week later he's dead. And I wish I would have reached out.
Guys are very good. Women can do it too, but guys are very good at putting up a facade.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't know what they're doing. Like Robin Williams, for example. People didn't know, you know, he's a funny guy, great movie actor, you know, all that kind of stuff. The demons that he was dealing with inside of his head. So, and you don't know it because they don't put it on display, and you don't find out about it until it's too late. Okay. There's at least 2 people right now that I've personally reached out to. I said, look, if you get in a dark place, I said, here's my phone number. I said, call me, because they're in situations like that where everything's been turned upside down. And guys just do not, like you said earlier, they don't have a list of girlfriends they can call to chat about it.
Yeah, there is
close friends, confidants, people that they feel okay talking to, and that aren't going to, you know, go broadcast it to everybody else. Well, you hear what happened to Ronnie? You know,
yeah, I need to. Yeah, there's also that. Like, here's the thing is, I think that a lot of guys get run up the flagpole for not being vulnerable or not expressing their feelings. And if they would just have talked about all of this stuff, then they wouldn't have committed suicide. Those are very female primary solutions to a male problem. It's not that they're not talking about it. It's the actual problem itself. It's the whole damn situation. It's not that they're not, you know, coming out and expressing themselves and trying to get it out like a woman would. It's because they're in a pretty messed up place. How are you going to help them get out of that messed up place?
The more a person, I think it was that Esther Perel said, the person that can hurt you the most is the person that's closest to you, your spouse. The more somebody knows about you, the more somebody can use that against you. And the people that we will trust the most, love the most, care about the most, are the ones that could actually hurt us the most. Now, when you're together and things are good, that's solid. You need that kind of stuff. But remember, at any given moment, for any given reason, somebody can turn.
That's true.
All that stuff that you confided now becomes ammunition to use in a court.
Right. Yeah. And so not only are you zeroed out, now you've given up all of your ammunition.
He was unstable. He told me that he was suicidal at times, Your Honor. You know, I mean, just imagine how all that plays out, right?
Yeah, exactly. Practical Stoic. Thank you, brother. Says, yeah, 2 of my blue-pilled friends don't talk to me since I gave them the Rational Male series. Learn my lesson.
Really, friends. Bye-bye. See ya.
Well, yeah. Well, here's the thing. Remember this saying is that unplugging guys from the matrix is dirty work. Okay. It's like triage. You have to save the ones that you can and move on to the next guys, because you can't save them all. There's going to be casualties, unfortunately. I understand that you have personal relationships with some of these guys, but remember that it's a process. It's not like, hey, here's the book. Oh, suddenly you think like me. No, it's not going to happen that way, because when you unplug, you are unplugging from a lot of ego investments. And that's really hard for a lot of guys, particularly if they built their existence around the blue pill. You know, they've been successful because of their belief in the blue pill.
Let me ask you a question. So I started the program talking about a buddy of mine. I ran into at the wreck who'd been zeroed out. Okay. Engaged this chick. And so the question I've got for you is, were women always this hypergamous, I guess, for lack of a better term? Or is it just because we can talk about it more now? Were they as it doesn't make sense for her to cheat. She's got a guy, he's solid, he's going to be a great provider, makes decent money, everything's moving along, they're planning on the wedding, yet it's like she cannot control this thing inside. She's got to get a piece of ass while he's away.
Yeah. Okay. What's the age of the girl? Do you know?
He's what is he? 31, 32. She's in the same age range. She's in the epiphany stage.
Okay. So she's in epiphany phase.
Now.
Yeah. Okay. So here's the thing is, after the sexual revolution, unfettered hypergamy. We no longer have the stigma that we had in the old social contract. Okay. So for a woman to have sex with a guy out of wedlock was scandalous. And I'm saying it didn't happen. I'm sure it did, but it was socially frowned upon. After the sexual revolution, after we give women unilateral control with of the reproductive process with hormonal birth control, after all of that is passed, we have pretty much unfettered hypergamy to the point where women feel entitled to explore their hypergamy. And if you do anything to try to buffer that, to say, hey, even just say, hey, have you thought about your sexual habits? Have you thought about this? That sounds like old school sexual repression now. You know, you and I don't know how old you are, but you and I are from a generation or from an era that is post sexual revolution. That means that all the stuff that we have known from the time we were kids all the way up to where we are right now, we have lived in a society, in a social order that has been defined by hormonal birth control, by all the changes that have happened because of the sexual revolution.
No, so we don't know what it was like, you know.
Right. We don't know what it was like when grandpa and grandma got together.
Right.
And because the times were different. Grandma was looking for not just a cute little guy to get with, but also a guy who is a good provider, might make a good husband, you want to settle down with, and actually start a family and live happily ever after. Now, after the sexual revolution, we've said, women, guess what? You are in charge of your sexuality. You are in charge of I mean, we say this all the time when it comes to like abortion and, abortion rights and stuff like that. Well, my body, my choice. Well, that is an example of the unfettering of hypergamy for women. So if it's your body and your choice, you get to decide, who gets born and who doesn't get born. And sometimes that's a moral issue. And sometimes that's something that it can be pretty messed up. And what we're saying is, men, you have no place in this anymore. You have no control over this anymore. There's no more sexual repression of women. That's why I laugh when I hear feminists go, oh yeah, little girls are told all the time that they're worthless. No, they're not. You go look at any Disney movie and it's nothing but the fempowerment narrative.
You can be anything you want to be.
You can be anything you want to be, right? And so there's certain aspects of our sexual nature as men and women that we have to have control over. We teach little boys all the time, don't walk around with a heart on. You can't be sexually expressed. Well, we don't want them to be, little perverts. We don't want them to walk.
Real quick, there's a clinic that advertises every program. I'm not going to name it.
Okay, I know who you're talking about. Yeah.
One of the things they have is a shot. You can get a shot that will determine your length of performance. What is it? Anywhere from 30 minutes to 2 hours. And I'm thinking, what's that like walking out of the office with that? How do you go down the elevator with that?
Yeah.
And what if you get pulled over by the cop? And life that hears you got the 2 hour shot is probably hiding somewhere under the bed.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, walking around with the the wood, that's going to attract some attention, I think.
Yeah. Well, so what we want to do, we teach for men, we teach a degree of self-control when it comes to sexuality. Women will say, well, when men who go and have lots of sexual partners, they seem like heroes. Again, that's the difference between men and women. That's just simply a biological gender difference. For men to successfully reproduce with many women is a success. It's something to be celebrated for a guy who has.
Let me get back to your notch count and the problem that created on my program. Because to trad cons, of which I was one, okay, you're terrible. You're a terrible person because, first of all,
I'm a man whore.
You're bragging about the fact that you slept with 40 women. You are the ultimate misogynist because you use them. You toss them away like spent condoms. You didn't care about them. You broke these women. You just
cared about everyone.
An awful person. That's what they would. That's what they say.
That's what they want to say. Yeah. Well, okay. There's a couple of reasons for that. The first one is that I'm a terrible person for following, or actually for having the capacity to follow my biological imperative, which is unlimited access to unlimited sexuality. And by the way, it wasn't unlimited. Okay. I still had to work at it for a very long time. It took me a little while to figure out game. But here's the thing is that, what did you say? You said they think that I'm a terrible person because I have followed a male imperative.
You use these women.
Well, first of all, a lot of the women wanted to get with me. So it wasn't like I was fiendishly using some magical superpower to get them into bed. A lot of them wanted to get. Some of them didn't require any game. So let's just pass that up right there. I think one of the reasons why tradcons get upset with guys who have access, who they, for lack of a better term, the chads, right? Yeah. Because there is this notion that men should be in control of their sexuality and to police themselves, just what we were talking about before. They don't have a problem with. I mean, we can call a woman a stereotypical slut. We can get into that. Why is that such a big deal, and why is it not such a big deal for guys? Well, we still want to encourage the idea of socially enforced monogamy. And that's where tradcons get upset, because if you are having sex with multiple women, there is the possibility that you are ruining those poor women for future guys to come along and marry. And because there is a potential that you might be the alpha that they become widowed from later on, because they say, okay, well, he was the best sex that I had, and I want to get back to that. And I'm not saying this me personally, I'm just saying that there is the potential. I think sort of on a hindbrain level, there's this potential to that guy, or the more partners that a woman has, right, it means that she is less able to pair bond later on. So if a woman's got, like, say 10 or 12 partners in her past, then there's a possibility that one of those partners in the past is a guy that she fixates on, and that therefore ruins her for the guy who ends up becoming her husband. And because they see it as a process, they see it as only one man, one woman. That's all it should always be. And any sex that's not for reproduction is a drug addiction. And so I'm no better than a drug addict for following that. So, yeah. But what the hell? You said something before that I was gonna talk about.
Threw a lot at you.
Yeah, I mean, as far as, like, one of the reasons why I think that they get upset about me being,
you weren't repentive of it. That was,
yeah, that's it. Maybe that's what I was going to talk about. Is like,
if you went into church and your testimony was I slept with 40 women and I see the error of my ways. Oh, they're going to invite you back time to time again.
Oh yeah, that's what Roosh is actually marketing himself on right now. Is right. He's repentant. He's turned a new leaf, and there's nothing that satisfies a religious mindset better than the confirmation that a guy who is this incorrigible, the prodigal son, right? It's like
story of the prodigal porn star, the female porn star who finds Jesus. She's
prodigal girl, prodigal woman. Man, we should
right there.
You and I really need to get. We need to do Religion and the Red Pill for one of these at some point. Okay, real quickly here, I've got Johnny B. said $20. Thank you, brother. Says it is hard not trying to say something when you see what is coming. I have a mechanic friend right now whose wife is going to college, and he is starting to talk about becoming a stay-at-home dad once she gets a good job. Yeah, you want to start that one? I thought this. I had to post that one up on the screen because that was too good. Okay, John. Here's what I'm gonna. I know he says it's not him, but what I'm gonna say is, first of all, go and watch Rule Zero from yesterday's show, because we talked about how men are quote unquote economically attractive and how they're not. And you and I talked about this, not this Friday, but the Friday before, because of that study about how women want men to earn 58% more than they are. Look at if you want to help the guy out, maybe point out some things and say, look, the instance of divorce for stay-at-home dads is pretty high. Once a woman gets, and this is a classic example of this, because you have two guys, you have a man and a woman, a husband and a wife, and the wife's going to school, and suddenly she graduates, and now she is out earning her husband, and the husband helped to help her through college, supported her through college. Now she's making more money. Now she's in a situation where she feels like she has reached a different plateau, like she's elevated herself up. Remember that hypergamy is always based on doubt, and that doubt always asks, is he the best that I can do? Now that question might be answered in the affirmative when you're a mechanic and she's in college. But when she jumps up and she's now the vice president of marketing at such and such a company, and you're a mechanic, and she out earns you by 5 or 10% or 5 or 10 times, that might be the time that she says, hey, I'm looking for something else. Or she's surrounded by men who are of a higher status than that guy is. And I think that what most beta guys rely on is this idea that they're living in this egalitarian utopia, or they're living in it's like, well, that stuff shouldn't matter because we're progressive, right? We're moving forward. We've evolved above that. Yeah. And so it doesn't matter if I'm a stay-at-home dad, that makes me even more attractive because I'm bucking the system. I'm going against the natural order of things, and women will find that more attractive.
You're going against the natural order. That's why 9 times out of 10 it won't work. A guy, first of all, I could not be a stay-at-home dad. I do not have the temperament. That's the word I'll use. Especially when the kids, I've got 5 children. When they were like under, I don't know, 10, for me to be at home with them all day, especially the younger ones, I'm sorry, it's just not going to work. Yeah. Plus, whatever you want to call it, my ego, I could not sit and let my wife out earn me because it's just, I've got a competitive vein in me where, okay, you make that, I'm going to make double it. There's something that's either hardwired into me or whatever that I would feel, it would make me feel like less of a man if I sat home and watched the kids and she's out there making the money. And also, by default, you're in charge, honey. You make the calls because you got the money. I don't have the money anymore. You got the check.
Yeah. And I think that there is something instinctual to that as well. I think that on kind of a visceral, evolved level, on some level of consciousness, a woman understands that if she is making more money than her husband, or if the guy is the one who's staying at home with the kids and she's the one out there making more money, and this is becoming more and more common. This is why that research came out to say that women would prefer to be with a guy who makes 58%. That's what makes them economically attractive, is if they make 58% more than what the woman makes.
Most
and
women,
to be more educated.
Most women, if you pull them aside privately, not in a public conversation, but if they're over 35 and you said, look, if you had the option of being a stay-at-home mom or being a careerist, which would you prefer? 99.9% of them would go for the stay-at-home mom. Maybe they'll do a little part-time job in they don't want to be out there doing that. Yeah. It is count. They have a nurturing component. That's what they were built to do. And everybody's fighting it because, and then we wonder why nobody's happy. Nobody's happy.
Yeah, we were just talking about this recently. I think on one of my Twitter discussion groups about how happiness is sort of this subjective, quantification. I think in some of these research, some of this research that's going on, like, are women more happy now? You remember this? Women are on more antidepressants now than ever before. When we're talking about antidepressants and all of that. Yeah. And so is that an indication that women are less happy? Well, I would say so, but why is that? Because they're put into a position where they can't be with their kids anymore. They've been told most of their lives throughout, because of the fempowerment narrative, that they need to live more life. The way to a satisfying life is to be, a careerist woman and, put off having kids. And, there's a lot of regret and a lot of resentment that goes along with that. And of course, they want to direct that at the men who won't participate and the men who won't cooperate along with this big feminist ideal. That's going to make them unhappy. So a lot of what we, I think societally, what we consider as happiness is founded on a female definition. What makes mama happy? If mama ain't happy, ain't nobody happy.
Happy wife, happy life.
Yeah, exactly. And so when you've got a woman who says, "Oh, it's okay, go ahead and be a stay-at-home dad. I got this." That is very, very rare. In the instance of divorce for couples where it is the man who is making less than the woman, the incidence of divorce is something like 33% higher, I think. John, from
it's guys that take alimony. I don't know how you do that and maintain your self-respect.
Yeah, exactly. All right, we're coming up on the end here. Just real quick, Baba Booey asked this, and I thought this was pretty good. Rollo, are alphas made or are they born? Can men be red pill but not alpha? Absolutely. Yeah. I would say that there's certainly a natural aspect to that, but I would say most guys tend to opt, when they're born, they tend to be more alpha, but they have that crushed out of them throughout life through their socialization in a feminine primary social order. There is that. Are there naturals? Yeah, there are. There's certainly guys who adopt an alpha mindset as a result of being naturally good looking, as a result of having women reward them for just simply being themselves. Then there's the guys who have to learn to be alpha and have to sort of fight their way to that alphaness. Here's my real quick.
I think birth order plays a role in it, and I think the father that's in the house or lack of a father can make a huge difference.
Yes. Can there be red pill men, but not alpha? Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of guys who are very much beta who are red pill. You want to find out who those guys are? Go look at the black pill. Those are a lot of guys who are have a very much a beta outlook on life, but they're red pill. They understand they understand the game that they're in. So yes, that's my answer to that. Okay. So anyways, this has been a really good show. I'm going to throw some banners on here real quick.
The book is the book still sponsoring?
You mean for Aaron Clary?
Yes.
Aaron Clary. You know what? Let's throw that on there real quick. I don't have he's been a good supporter of the show. Yeah. Curse of the High IQ. If you haven't got it, go ahead and check that out. Where did he put that? There we are. Okay. So here you go. Curse of the High IQ by Aaron Clary. Go check that out on Amazon. I believe it's available on Audible now too.
Yes, I've got it on Audible.
Yeah, check it out. Really good book. Aaron's been a good friend of mine for a while, so I'm just going to give him
the girl in the picture will read the book to you.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. There you go. Okay. So a couple things. We will be on your show, which I have a new banner for right here. Pat Campbell Show, Friday at 9:05 a.m. Eastern. Tell us about it. What is it about, Pat? What's your show all about?
What is the segment about?
Well, our segment is about it. What we usually talk.
What we do with the segment is it's stories that I see out in the news that we tie into red pill, I guess, concepts. It's pretty much what it's been from the get go. I always say some sort of story that's out there. Why is this happening? And then we use the rational male, we use the iron rules to sort of explain why things are the way they are. That's why this week's, that's actually a big issue that we should do on this program too, is why men and women argue or have disagreements, difference in the style, and why so many times nothing seems to get resolved. Is there a better way?
Yeah, the communicator. We should do that. Yeah, we should make the next show about that. I thought that was really good when we talked. When we did the Esther Perel thing on there. We can even do that.
She's really a fascinating lady with some unique ideas.
We can probably pipe in the audio for that too, and go bit by bit if you'd like. Okay, so that is the Pat Campbell Show. Fridays at 9:05 Eastern. That's our spot. Or if you'd like, you can
1170 KFAQ in Tulsa, Oklahoma. I always put I put the podcast up on my Twitter feed right after the show.
Me too.
And Rollo has links to it too as well.
Yep, exactly. Okay. Also, please go ahead and pick up my book if you have not already done so. It is the Rational Male series. The first one is what everybody starts with. There is also Rational Male Preventive Medicine, and there is the Positive Masculinity, which is the third book. I'm still working on book number 4, which is still out to edit right now. I'm going to have Pat Campbell write the foreword to it as well once I get ready for it. Yeah, it's been rumored.
I want to answer this because so many people were asking in the chat, what's going on with my eye? I broke a blood vessel. I sneezed really hard and it broke.
Really?
There's nothing, when you use something like Visine, it's a vasoconstrictor. That won't work. What happens is I've got blood that's pooled there. It's like a bruise to the eye. It doesn't hurt, doesn't feel bad. It takes 7 to 10 days to clear. So,
ouch. From a sneeze?
From a sneeze, that's
a really hard sneeze.
Sneeze.
You don't mess around.
I felt the sneeze. I didn't know anything was wrong with my eye until I got home, and everybody said, "What happened to your eye?" I said, "What's the matter?" It did feel the whole left side of my left eye was like completely red.
So it doesn't mess with your vision then.
There you go.
Huh. All right. Well, anyways, I will be on Rule 0 once again on this Saturday. We do that at 11:30 Eastern. I believe it's going to be Ryan hosting this weekend. I could be wrong, but anyways,
Q&A.
Yeah. Make sure that you follow myself or Ryan or Rich Cooper or John from Modern Life Dating. Those are the 4 guys that host the show. Look at my Twitter feed coming up and you'll find out when the next one's going to be. And then, of course, as always, we are here on Sundays at 4:30 Eastern. Right here on this show. Also, I have decided that Wednesdays at 3:00 is going to be the time that I'm going to do my solo show. So start looking for that. I don't know what I'm going to title it because I can't keep calling it Ask Me Anything. So I'm going to be doing just probably about an hour to an hour and a half on Wednesdays on this channel. So please, if you haven't subscribed already, go ahead and subscribe. Also, copy and paste this show URL and put it into your Facebook, which I am also, by the way, now on Facebook. So you can look me up, Rollo Tomasi, on Facebook. Also, you can find me at the Rule Zero Facebook users group. If you don't know where to find me on Facebook, I just started this account because I've been so reluctant to get on Facebook because I never really liked to use Facebook, but now I am because too many people asked me to. So I'm going to be doing that. Also,
on the radio, I would not be on Facebook.
So, yeah.
So my mother goes, Facebook's for old people.
It is. My daughter says the same thing too. I'm on Instagram too. I just post like kind of personal stuff.
Are you on Instagram?
I am on Instagram. Look up The Rational Male or look up Rollo Tomasi and you'll find me on there. I just post like sort of pictures around my house. I just post personal stuff on there. I don't really, you won't get any advertising. Well, you won't get much advertising from me on Instagram. It's just like I use it occasionally. I like it. It's okay. And so, also, if you haven't done so, please go ahead and pick up my book. And also, smash the like button, subscribe to this, please. And then also, if you haven't done so already and you really want to help out the show and it doesn't cost you a dime, please go ahead and give me a good positive review on Amazon for any of my 3 books. That helps me out immeasurably. So with that, thank you, Pat. It's been fun. And we will see you guys next week. Bye-bye, guys.